Good evening, everyone. And can you hear me okay? Wonderful. And I guess a little bit we're social distancing, but I like the number we have here. It's kind of cozy today. I wish we were all kind of sitting closer together. But I guess we don't have to move. I'm sharing it not as an idea that to sit closer together, but rather to express my warmth or my coziness that we're here together this way. And so thank you for being here. But maybe in order to feel a little bit of that, maybe we can go around the room and you can say your names if you're willing with the mic so I can hear it.
I'm Sage. Yeah, my name is Jim.
My name is Sveta.
I'm Nancy.
Eric.
Sally.
Hi, my name is Abhishek.
Hi, I'm Jeff.
I'm Andre.
Hi, I'm Catherine.
I'm Janice.
Hi, I'm April.
Hi, I'm Kathy.
I'm Malvika.
You can keep the mic there. You can maybe turn it off. So thank you all very much. This just kind of, I won't remember the name so well, but it was just as a way of kind of coming together in our voices a little bit. Down through the centuries in religious circles, people would chant together or sing together, and sharing of voices and breathing and sound and everything kind of begins to meld, and something deeper melds deep inside. And I think the same thing happens when people meditate together. Maybe it's not so quick or so obvious, but it's remarkable to the kind of inner sensibility or the inner kind of sharing of a certain kind of purpose, a certain kind of set of values, a certain set of awareness that kind of is born in meditation, and then to do that together with other people nearby. I think for each person, that whole experience is different, but it's also something we share, something that happens in community. And it's a very valuable part of all this. And maybe that could be a good introduction to the theme of what I want to talk about today. And that is some words about the ethics in Buddhism, and particularly the 5 precepts. And I think it's kind of natural, it feels much more natural to live in an ethical way where you're a little bit careful about the impact we have on others so we don't hurt them when we're in community, when we have a shared life together. And so if you sit and meditate with people or share something that's kind of intimate and close, where maybe you're touched yourself by the opening, the relaxation, the inner kind of sense of connection to maybe a little bit more calm or freedom or something that you have. And to share that with others, is a remarkable thing. And probably you don't want to kind of just walk up to someone here and just kind of, swear angrily at them. It would feel kind of little bit like, it would feel kind of off, I think. Or try to kill them or steal from them, and they might have better shoes than you. And, so you go home with them instead. Many years ago when we were in Palo Alto, a lot of people used to have Birkenstocks then, much more than now, and so I had them. And one evening there was somehow 3 different pairs that ended up on 3 different people's feet. And I ended up with better Birkenstocks. I tried to find the owner, but that never happened. But anyway, so we tend to kind of have a different feeling in relationship with each other like this. And then imagine that this sensibility of how we are, maybe sometimes, I'm not saying we have it here today completely the way I'm saying it, but some sensibility of kind of sense of connectivity and sensitivity and appreciation. And with meditation sometimes we kind of tend to see people as beautiful. That's kind of wonderful. And so we begin discovering it in this kind of environment. And imagine if we start seeing everyone in the world that way. You kind of that becomes more your default for how to see people and be with people, rather than default being fear about people or hostility, because blaming, people are somehow, at fault. They're not behaving properly. And all kinds of things. Anyway, so this idea that ethics would come from wouldn't come from a rule, like you should do a certain way, and let me tell you all the good reasons why you should be ethical. But rather, it starts coming because we're changing inside. There's an interchange of perception, change of disposition, change of sensitivity, change of values. And so that becomes something that we want to protect, or something when we live by or care by or something. And so the precepts then don't become rules to live by, but it can be seen as protections that keep us in that state. They are ways of living that protect us from falling back into the opposite way, where we might have hostility, where we might have anxiety and close up, where we might have greed predominate or desires predominate, that where we're not so attuned to others and not attuned to ourselves. And so, but if this attunement, then there's something here that's valuable to protect. There's something here that is precious and valuable. So, I don't know if you have this, I've had this at home, a drawer full of electronic wires. And I don't know, how they end up in this way, but they're like this big knot of mess of wires. And it takes a while to sort them out and put them out and change, get them all kind of free from each other so they can use them easily later on. And usually I think people don't say, well, I did the work, that's great, now they're easy to use. And then you just bump them, throw them back in the drawer. I mean, it's kind of silly, right? There's kind of instant, So we do all this work to untangle all the wires in our hearts and our minds, our complicated entanglements with people and ourselves and our history and our memories and our hurts and our vengeances and our hopes and aspirations. I mean, it's like that drawer in there is like pretty. And then we sit and meditate and we undo all those tangles. It's worthwhile not losing and not putting it all back in the drawer and getting it all, and not only putting it back in the drawer, you put it in the washing machine. It's worthwhile kind of protecting it a little bit. So in this practice, after a while, we have a clear sense, a kind of matter-of-fact sense, a practical sense. There's something really great going on here, and this wonderful thing we're tapping into, this is worth protecting. It's worth kind of keeping it this way. So from that point of view, these 5 precepts that we have, the ethical precepts, are ways of protecting ourselves from losing something important, and they're a way of protecting our community from losing something important, the community connection, the respect for each other, the care for each other, some deeper, more attuned way of living with each other. And so the 5 precepts that probably most of you live with most of them, but the world doesn't. All you have to do is read the news, and the world doesn't live this way. But there's so not killing, and so this is like the number one cardinal precept in Buddhism, and that doesn't just mean don't kill other human beings, but live a non-harming life. Be careful. Ideally, you wouldn't kill any animals, any pests, any insects. You would be really careful with that. And where the line is between what you feel like you have to do to protect yourself, some of us will take antibiotics. So that's kind of, we kill those poor bacteria before they kill us. But, where does that line go where we feel like I can't allow that to live because that crosses a line for me that is too difficult. But what I've seen in meditation circles is that as people meditate, the line around what's is okay to kill gets smaller and smaller, smaller thing. And so much so that people will not only not kill insects or little animals, they'll go out of their way to protect them. I've known people who, like when there's a place where there's like cars or bicycles, something going, after a fog, and there's all these slugs on the sidewalk, and the people who go and kind of help the slugs out of the sidewalk or out of the road, because they know otherwise they'll get squashed. So, is that silly to do that? It's not silly for the person who's doing it, who's feeling attuned to something very important. And it's not silly for the slug who's going to survive. So this idea of not killing, not as a punitive rule, not as a moralistic commandment, but rather arising out of a desire to stay true to something that's being born, something that's been awoken, something we've tapped into. Of course, I don't want to harm someone. If you find that you want to hurt someone and punch them out, something, the recommendation is you stop and take a good look at what's going on. If you take enough time to pause and check yourself out, you'll probably find you've lost that attunement. You've lost that connection to something that's very valuable and important. That way of being, a value, a disposition, all kinds of things. That is some of the most beautiful ways a human being can live. In Buddhism, we use that when we use the word wealth, we're not referring to a wealthy person as someone who has a lot of money. From the Buddhist point of view, some wealthy people are really poor because they don't have that attunement, they don't have that disposition, they don't have that access to something that is quite beautiful. They're living with anxiety. So if we want to punch someone out, or you want to kill a pest because we think it's bothering us, to stop and take a good look and see, are you still attuned? Are you still coming from the place that you want to live from? Because that's where it really is good way of living. To get lost in stress is to get lost in entanglement. All the wire is all messed up again. And sometimes it can take a while to do the untangling. The second precept is, all the other precepts are kind of extensions of the first, not harming. The second precept is not to take what is not given. And you probably know this, that the reason it's worded this way, rather than don't steal, is that it's two reasons. It's a higher bar. You have to be real. It isn't that simply you take something. You have to wait until it's given before you use it, even. So that there's real care about possession, real care about generosity, real care about understanding and exchange and friendship and the communication between people. And so you wouldn't take anything unless it's clearly been offered. Even if, sometimes even if I think it's being offered, but then you kind of wait and see, is it really being offered? Food, someone has, then there's often a common thing for Buddhists to do is, is if you go to someone's house and on the coffee table there's some kind of snack, kind of the assumption is that that's already being offered, because that's, otherwise why would they have it there? But some practitioners would simply not touch it when, until there's a clear, oh, please have some. Is that silly to have that kind of care? What it does is it conveys that you're a trustable person. You can trust me. You can trust me with your things. There was at our retreat center some years ago, 5-6 years ago, someone dropped their wallet in the community hall floor, and they just put it next to the Buddha, the altar there, and because no one opened it, I think they felt it was a safe place, no one's going to take it there, so they just left it there, and some few days later, the person who lost the wallet realized it and went looking for it, and there it was. It hadn't moved. 40 people living together, and a wallet, right in the center of the building, everyone to see. And I think everyone kind of appreciated this was a safe place. This was a community of people you can trust. They're not going to take what is not given. So, okay, it's okay to leave it there. I mean, that's kind of remarkable in our society. Where do you find 40 people where you have that level of trust, especially if you've been strangers, didn't know each other before? So there's cultivating trust and trusting between people and helping everyone feel safe. And then there's not harming others with sexuality. So not engaging in sexual misconduct. This is so much suffering in this world around sexuality. I mean, some of the suffering, one event, the suffering can last the rest of a lifetime. And it isn't just sex that's so painful sometimes and what goes on, but sex that conveys power and aggression and forcefulness and violence and objectification and self-gratification, conceit. There's so many things that can happen that make it askew. Sexuality sometimes can be phenomenally selfish without really being attuned to someone else. And it can be phenomenally selfless. It can be a beautiful expression of caring for someone else. So and we don't even know. I've had to counsel people who were involved in causing harm with their sexuality, and they've insisted it was consensual. But what they didn't know, on the surface it was, but what they didn't know was their partner had a very abusive history. And so it couldn't say no, and the impact of sexuality touched these deep places of wounding and hurt and fear that was not there on the surface. And so how do you stay attuned to not cause harm with our sexual energies? Even sometimes, I've known people who felt somehow violated just by how people looked at them because of the sexual energy that goes on, which makes society, the world, uncomfortable. I was kind of a little bit horrified when I was 18 at kind of what it meant to be a woman in some societies. Because I had long blonde hair that went down halfway down my torso. And I was, so at some point I went on a cross-country trip, and it wasn't the United States, another country. And I was just driving along on the freeway. Every car that passed me that had a man in it turned to look at me. Because in that country, back then, long blonde hair was very unusual to have for a man. And this was like 1970, I think. And so, 72. But I was like, wow, is this what happens to women? Every person looks at them, every man. Isn't that kind of challenging? And So doesn't this fit a little bit into that third precept of not abusing sexuality? Isn't that going to be some way that's going to cause some people to live in fear or distress or to shut down or hide away or do something? So it's such a sensitive thing. So to be careful with this is such an important part of protecting something that's so valuable. And at some point also with practice, as we practice more deeply, we feel how fragile or how vulnerable this kind of inner disposition of openness and care and sensitivity and freedom can be, that we want to protect other people from having that as well. We don't want other people to have their hearts closed. I had my heart closed when I was 15 or a teenager a number of times, where I just felt like a door just, closed because of what happened to me. And it took sometimes years, took this practice sometimes that I did, to have that, finally have the trust to open that up again. So the same thing can be true with the fourth precept, not to lie. To lie ruins trust, causes people to feel afraid if it's betrayed. Some people, again, will close up and say, well, if I'm betrayed in that kind of lie, I don't know who to trust, so I'll just keep to myself and not open up. It can cause a lot of harm to people to go around lying. And it undermines the level of trust that we can have in society and with each other. And so to have a high sensitivity and high care for being truthful. And to be truthful in caring ways. There are people who use truth as a weapon, that doesn't feel good. People use truth carelessly and say things, well, it's true, so it's okay to say it. And that's why the first precept is so important. You want to, if you speak, you want to speak in ways that doesn't cause harm. And the strict meaning of the first precept, not to kill, can be used metaphorically, that lying something can die in other people if they hear, live a lie or notice someone lied in some powerful way on them and they feel betrayed. But more importantly, for people who do mindfulness meditation is a practice of truth-telling to oneself. I like to think of that mindfulness out loud is being honest and saying, honestly, what's happening. So if you lie, you're doing the very opposite of what we're trying to do in this practice. Even if you know you're lying, you're mindfully lying, you're still, a part of you is going against the grain of mindfulness and the kind of clarity of practice. So if you're serious about this practice, why would you lie? It's the very thing you're trying not to do. You're trying to actually, live a truthful life, even if it's only to yourself. And then the fifth one is to avoid intoxication. And this one's a little bit ambiguous, because and the Buddhist tradition kind of recognizes it kind of stands out as an anomaly compared to the other four. So it doesn't quite fit into the same category. And so, for example, I don't remember exactly the ancient language, but it's kind of like they say the first four are referred to as being a kind of corruption or impurity. But they never say that about the fifth one, not getting intoxicated. And I think the reason for that is best, and there's no explanation for why this is the case, but one of the best reasons for that is that it's possible to intoxicate oneself alone, without it having to have an impact on anyone else. There's no harm being wished on someone else. There's no harm being wished on oneself. There's no, sometimes actually it's the opposite. There's something inside of us that's trying to protect ourselves or protect ourselves from despair and anger and pain, and and try to escape the difficulties in life. I mean, it is a kind of caretaking sometimes that people are doing, and also because there's taking small dosages that some people are used medicinally or something. It doesn't really cause people to get intoxicated. So are we really supposed to avoid all intoxicating drinks, for example? And for Buddhist monastics, they're actually allowed to have alcohol in food, provided that they can't taste it. And only if someone offers it the food to them. They can't go make their own food and put in. And so it's only in very rare circumstance where that can happen. So but again, there's so much amazing, astounding amount of suffering that happens in our societies because of intoxication. People die. I mean, every day there's probably, lots and lots of people are dying from overdosing of drugs, somehow from alcoholism. It's phenomenal. The destroyed families, the children. I hear all these stories of people growing up with alcoholic parents who are raging parents when they're drunk. And the impact that has on the children is dramatic. And that also can last for a lifetime if they don't find some way to heal from it. So if we live this kind of meditative life, and that's the emphasis here for today's talk, then I think we would feel or sense or be concerned with the impact our life has on the world and the impact our lives has on ourselves. And the deleterious impact of breaking the 5 precepts, both for others and for us doing them, is such that we're destroying the very kind of inner life that we're cultivating and awakening through this practice. So, and what we're cultivating here, awakening here, is in fact worth protecting, is in fact something that's worth kind of safeguarding. And a powerful way of safeguarding it is to live by these 5 precepts, to have a very high commitment to them. And so be very careful. And what you'll find if you do this is that there's a kind of, I think most of you, and probably all of you in most ways, are probably very ethical. But then what happens, we get more and more sensitive to nuances, just that we never thought about before. So for example, exaggeration. Is that a kind of lie? And then if we look, why am I exaggerating? Because that's what we do. We always ask why. Why am I exaggerating? And sometimes it's not very something to be proud of why we exaggerate. We're trying to build ourselves up and say, no, I went to the best restaurant in town. Why do we want to tell people that? Because we made a good choice. We want to show people what a good, wonderful person we are because we had the best or something. Or some people exaggerate because they, all kinds of reasons that are not necessarily so healthy. So it isn't that there's a requirement to stop exaggerating. It just says, what's the request? What's the inspiration that comes out of this inner life that gets born from meditation? If we ask our hearts after meditation, what's your request, heart? How should I live? I doubt the heart's going to say, I'll go out and kill or break the precepts. It's the opposite. The heart's request is to live a good life, is to live a life that lets that heart sing and be happy and safe and contented. And so in this practice, there comes at various times in the practice where we discover something has been born, something has been awakened in us that becomes a treasure. And that treasure is something we want to care for. We don't want to cling to it, certainly, though there's a lot worse things to do to cling to honesty. So don't worry about it if that's what you're clinging to. But you don't want to cling to it, or you don't want to use the precepts as a way of being angry with ourselves, disappointing us, feeling bad about ourselves. There's an art to using these precepts not as a way to measure ourselves and that we didn't live up to our standards, but rather to always live with the idea, I'm going to try to do better. I didn't do as well as I maybe hoped. I could feel the impact on me, and I'm going to, so it's kind of, I hope, I'm committed, I aspire to, let's do better here. Let's now start over again. Let's find a new way today. Wake up tomorrow morning and I'll see what I can do to do better, rather than wake up the next morning and kind of be ground down by the self-criticism that can happen. Because that's kind of coming out of this beautiful place that we have inside. And the more this beautiful awakened feelings and sensibilities, attunement occurs within, the more treasure we have, the more reference point we have that then guides us for how we want to live our life. And so it's not just a way to feel through meditation, it's a way to live as well. And finally, this kind of a commitment to practicing with the ethical precepts is a significant way of helping the mindfulness practice touch all kinds of difficult places in our lives, in our hearts, in our minds, to help reveal where mindfulness should go so we can understand ourselves better and work through things. It's a fantastic thing. So we have something to safeguard. So what do you think of this? That's kind of the main point I wanted to make today. We have something to safeguard when we do this practice. And I was wondering if some of you would maybe be willing to say some words if you have discovered something that was worth safeguarding, that's coming from this practice, and share some of your ideas on this topic. Anybody? Sometimes it's dangerous not to speak because I could call on you. But I think actually, you want to say something? Sure, great.
So I can't imagine not safeguarding all of them in some way or another, but I will say it's complicated. It can be just so complicated.
But is there some reference point inside you?
Oh, I feel like I have a barometer in my body. I feel like I have a barometer.
Fantastic.
There's a level of...
And how does that barometer show itself? Is it
my shoulders rise, my flywheel goes faster, and it's like my body speaks to me when I'm, what would you call it? Crossing a line, maybe. Crossing a line.
Great, thank you. That was nice to hear.
Yeah, I know for me, before I started this practice, I just think back, and it's quite a transformation. Just 5-6 years ago, I just have become much more sensitive to causing harm, and so I'm just so grateful to have this practice, because the more I practice, the more I want to live ethically by the precepts and be careful with my actions.
Thank you.
Hi. There's somebody who caused me a lot of pain a few years ago, and I spent a long time working through it, and I just decided that I don't want to, and I can't live this life with any hate in my heart for anyone. And I feel like I don't have hate in my heart for this person anymore. Not to say that it wasn't there once, and I can't really explain how that happened, but I think it's because of the practice.
Very nice. Thank you.
I'm noticing that I'm becoming very, very sensitive to concealing the truth. It's about the fourth precept, that I sometimes don't even know, don't know what I'm hiding exactly, but I kind of, there's this, like in a barometer.
Uh-huh.
Oh, something is there. And also I'm noticing something completely different. Sensitivity to, like, when I'm buying food and there's a lot of plastic wrapping, so I just feel uncomfortable. So more and more uncomfortable.
So what part of what grows is not just necessarily inner beauty and treasures, but inner discomfort.
Yeah.
And that's valuable too. Can be a treasure. It protects us from doing something that we don't want to do. Thank you. So thank you. Those are wonderful comments. Is that enough? Unless someone else would like, I'd love to. So thank you. So, and I don't know if some of you might be new to all this, so if this seems kind of strange, the practice does bear wonderful fruits. And one of the wonderful fruits is a strong interest, even a commitment to living an ethical life, not because you're supposed to, but because it's the heart's request. May your heart guide you. So thank you.